This is Triple Play Fantasy Basketball. I'm your host, Coach James Lewis. On the other end, Eric Doc Middleton. It's been a little while. What up?
You know what, James? It's been a little bit. The report is still there as you corrected the graphic that we have in the background. It looks good. It looks good. But there's been a lot of news coming out so far in the NBA, and I feel like this is just the beginning of the slope. We haven't hit the tip of the iceberg yet.
Yeah, some big moves have been made, and most recently, within the last hour, I guess I want to say, is Emmanuel quickly signing a 5-year, $175 million deal. That's a follow-up. Scotty Barnes is the same in years in line, 5-year, $270 million. What you think about that pairing going forward? Is there an overpay, or do you like what Toronto's doing going forward?
I like Scotty Barnes, what they paid. You knew when they trade for Quickly that they were going to pay him that amount. I guess it's okay considering what the salary cap is. This reminds me of the summer of 2016 when guys like Jan Mahinmi got 4 years, $64 million.
Hey, he's still on the books.
I know.
Did you see that? Yeah.
I know.
That's hilarious. But yeah, go ahead.
So I mean, how can you really say like someone is an overpay? Like, I guess it looks like a bargain compared to, Jaylen Brown, who's going to be making $60 million plus in a couple of years. But all I'm asking, can I hold $1 million? Can I just like invest it and then the interest I make you, I keep? I don't think it's a big request.
And he's a local guy. He's like a Baltimore guy. A friend I know, they're like real good buddies. He trains them in the off season, and like, dude, Emmanuel quickly is gonna be paying for dinner. RJ Barrett already posted about it. He said, Emmanuel's paying for dinner.
Going to the nicest steakhouse possible.
Yeah, I saw they got Davion Mitchell as well in a little small move. So
I like that.
Toronto it's a whole different look from that championship team. I don't know if they have anybody that's still on a roster. OG Anunoby got paid big time by the Knicks, and you didn't know that was going to happen with Mikal Bridges. Obviously we got to talk about that. That's the biggest trade we've seen thus far. It's talking about overpay. That's 5 first rounds and a pick swap. Like, it's a lot.
It's crazy because Mikal Bridges isn't a superstar, but that's a price that you would pay. And it's remember Houston had offered this last year as well. There were a lot of Mikal Bridges suitors. I guess maybe it's because of the durability, somebody that hasn't missed, a game probably since high school, that you know what you're going to get from him. Consistency. I mean, the guy eats Chipotle every day, gets the same order, and maybe some teams are willing to pay for that. I think obviously the current roster on the Knicks had some influence over it. I don't like it because I think that they overpaid to have a log jam at the forward position in general. Like, if they lose Hartenstein, it's Mitchell Robinson at center who hasn't been durable. And then you're maybe playing with a small lineup, and who knows what happens with Julius Randle.
Yeah, and they did not address that in the draft. They did get Tyler Kolek, that I like, as a nice scrappy point guard. He should get some minutes right off the bat. But I mean, with Bridges, I'm not really worried about that logjam. They all are very versatile in those positions. I think the question mark, to your point, is that center position because Mitchell Robinson's durability. I think you have a trade ship in Julius Randle now, seeing how they played without him. But to think about Bridges and Anunoby on the defensive end, like in that switchability, and the whole Villanova connection, I really like what they did. They still got 2 first rounds next year. They get a first round a year after that. Like, they did build a bunch of draft capital so that they could make a move in a splash like this. They missed out on Donovan Mitchell, and it's probably for the better.
I like that they're going all in. I like that they're being aggressive with the team that they have now. Obviously, injuries plagued them towards the end of the season. They were the number 2 seed in the East. They think that they can challenge the Celtics. So I like that they're being aggressive. And you're right. I mean, they still do have some draft picks next year that they can do. I think they need to address center. And I'm looking at it right now. If they lose Mitchell Robinson, and I assume they're losing Hartenstein, it's Precious Achiuwa that's playing the center, which is fine if you're trying to do like a defensive, kind of small ball team. The Warriors kind of were cutting, I don't want to say technology, but they were the first ones to kind of do small ball and positionless basketball. So if the Knicks are trying to start something, that's fine, but I think you do need some more height.
I mean, you can space out 5 out. Randle, that's a lot to ask to be kind of a defensive anchor, but we've seen him be able to shoot the three ball now. But
Get
Hartenstein got to
Julius
be
Randle
priority
out.
number one. And like I
Get,
don't, the book isn't closed on it. I know there'll be a market there for him. I don't know how much money they still have left. Like, let's keep in mind Bridges is still on that, that rookie extension deal. It's a really good contract, one of the best contracts in the NBA. His two years left on it. So they still have some money on the books to bring back Hartenstein. I think that's got to be priority number one, especially how he fits with this team.
He's going to get more money if he goes elsewhere, though. You know that.
But who's gonna do it? Who's gonna sign him? I don't know.
OKC.
I mean, that'd be a great
So
destination.
I'm looking
They need some beef.
I'm looking for next season, 2024, 2025. Randall's going to make 30 mil. If they get Randall's contract off the books, then they get Hartenstein. But who's going to take Julius Randle?
I like the idea of Houston going to get him.
Oh, that's awful. I
mean, they're big game hunting down there. They want to win now, and he could play with
I think Ingram goes there.
And I mean, you would wish that, like, say, a Steven Adams was like still in his prime and still good, because he would be like a perfect, the old version of himself. But I don't know. I don't know how that works. I do know that Houston, they have too many young prospects to play all of them. I love Reed Shepherd and the fit, kind of be a, the future Fred VanVleet of that team. Watch a little bit play. He's going to play immediately, and then eventually, ideally, is your starting point guard. You run him and Thompson out there with Green, and hopefully that works.
You hear it from me first. Julius Randle is going to go to Detroit so that they can eat his salary, and New York will send like 3 second-round picks or like a late first with Julius Randle to clear cap space to get Hartenstein.
Speaking of Detroit, what did you think of the Ron Holland acquisition? His weakness is that he's not really good at shooting the basketball. They added Vincent as a coach, who's one of the best shooting coaches in the NBA. If he can fix everybody, Detroit's a problem. If you can fix, Cade Cunningham, make Ivy more consistent, a Summer Thompson, and then you got Ron Holland, like, then you're good. But like none of them can really shoot the basketball.
I mean, isn't this just same-ish, different day with Detroit? I mean, we said
it's a different day. They spent $65 million to send their coach home,
but that's what I'm saying. Like last year, we're like, oh, is Killian Hayes going to take a step forward? A Summer Thompson, somebody that doesn't play great defense, but does a lot of other things well. And then 1 year later, they have a new head coach. They have a new GM. They have drafted someone that can't shoot. I like the upside from him. He's 18. He's 6'8". But I like all these.
I like a lot of their young talent, but it is nice to have a Detroit Pistons franchise out there that makes, the Wizards not look like the most incompetent team in the NBA. We got to talk about them. They had Alex Sarr. They got a couple other young prospects, and Keyshawn George, and then Bub Carrington, local Baltimore product guard. We've seen them kind of booming recently in the league. What do you think about what the Wizards are doing? They send Odsby out. They save a little bit of money that way, but I think it opens up some playing time for these younger guys, and to tank again next year and hopefully get one of these top prospects like a Cooper Flagg, like a Dylan Harper, perhaps, Nolan Traore. Like, there's a lot of talent at the top of next year's draft.
James, I love this. Michael Winger has been in one offseason better than all of the Wizards GM years for years and years with Tommy Shepard and Ernie Grunfeld. We are finally embracing the tank.
I like it.
Alex Sarr at 2 is a steal. Him and Koulibaly as our future. Long French, athletic wings, long wingspan. Perfect. I love those as building blocks. Denny Avdia, great. He had a career year last year. I know he's 23, but we got his contract off the books. He signed a 4-year, $55 million extension that was going to kick in this season. So we're saving money on that. We're going to flip Brogdon. We got picks from that, and we're finally going about it the right way of wanting to take on picks and just build through the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if we flipped Brogdon.
Tyus Jones as well. He still has value.
Tyus Jones doesn't have a contract right now, so I think he's a sign and trade candidate. I wouldn't be surprised if we got rid of Kuzma. Kuzma has 3 years, 63 mil left on his contract. That's manageable for a team that's
Yeah,
looking to trade for him.
yeah, he's got a good contract. You could get him, and then I, ideally you see yourself in the top five, right? If you can get
Absolutely.
Flag, you can get Ace Bailey, you can get Dylan Harper, you can get VJ Edgecombe, or some of these foreign guys. I mean, we're going French. You know, this point guard is a fucking stud. Hugo, like, there's a lot of guys in this next year's draft that there's a reason why people have been talking about it for years. It's very polarizing, but you know, you got to make sure the lottery balls fall in your favor. Hopefully, you know, you don't get kicked out by Houston and Atlanta like this draft did this year, and you got Sar, and then the next year you fall out. Ideally, you
James,
get that top 5 pick.
I can't remember the Wizards ever having the potential salary cap floor or ceiling that they have now. Jordan Poole, I don't think we would get his contract off the books, but if we get Kyle Kuzma off, we have Bagley this year for 12.5 million. He's off the book. Rashawn Holmes, 12.8 million player option. He will probably opt into. Landry Shamet, 2-year, 22 mil left. And that's it, assuming we flip Brogdon. That puts us in such a favorable position to take on these bad contracts. Maybe we do take a Julius Randle so that the Knicks have like that. That's what you want to do when you're tanking, is to build assets. And I love what the Wizards are doing. I think that I wouldn't say that they're the number one winner. Actually, I might, but they're a top 2 from this draft. Like, coming out, getting Sar at 2, doing the moves they did, getting Bub Carrington, a player with upside that's 18 years old. I don't mind it.
I love Stephon Castle for the Spurs. And at 8, do you see Rob Dillingham? You're like, oh man, I like this. I like, you got Wemby to back it up. And then they trade Dillingham for a middle schooler, a first round pick in 2030, 2031. Like, that's crazy to think about. I think San Antonio, maybe even if you didn't get Dillingham, I think there was other guys that you could build around right now, as opposed to, you know, a future plan. Like, that's what I thought. I love it for the T Wolves. Of any team that could have used Rob Dillingham, the T Wolves need offense and somebody that's going to put the ball in the basket. They got Shannon Jr. as well. He's one of the other better basket getters in college basketball. You put them in, and their offense, which literally only Anthony Edwards could really create his own shot. I think and then you got Gobert backing him up. I think Dillingham is going to be exciting for the T Wolves next season.
I like that pick. I mean, they're being aggressive, right? Conley's 37, and he was pretty healthy last season, but he's
I mean,
been
they
a
didn't
guy.
have a pick, and they end up with Rob Dillingham, the best
Yeah,
isolation scorer in the whole draft.
I like the pick. I like the pick too because, like I said, with Conley, he's 37. He's had a history of hamstring issues. He was relatively healthy last season, but you saw in the playoffs, the offense ran through Anthony Edwards, whether he's doing an isolation jumper or whether with 5 seconds left, he was passing it on the shot clock to somebody that was open. And I know Karl Anthony Towns is, kind of the number 2 option now, but he can't create his own shot like he could before. He's a great shooter, rebounds the ball well, but you need someone that's explosive. I think Rob Dillingham is that. The only reason I see that the Spurs traded out of that position, I mean, they're kind of like guard heavy. Like, they signed Vassell to a contract. I think that would signal that he was on the way out. Keldon Johnson, I know he's a small
No, Vassell's
forward.
the building block going forward. I think
But,
I
but, but
think
that's what I'm
Vassell
saying.
after Wemby is the guy that the 3-and-D mode. Like, he's definitely the guy that
But that's what I'm
of
saying.
everybody on the team they're prioritizing.
But that's what I'm saying. Why would you draft Stephon Castle and Vassell, assuming that's your backcourt of the future, and then take Dillingham? I think if
I mean,
they
because
had
you can
moved
play all
Keldon,
3 of them on a court because of Castle's defense. I'm just saying hypothetically. And then Dillingham, like, he's got, even at worst, I see him being, 6-man high level scorer off your bench that can operate a pick and roll with Wemby or maybe somebody else going forward.
I agree with you. I just don't think San Antonio is as like all in, as aggressive yet. And that's why I think they're like, oh, we'll take the trade back because there's not like, we're not looking to make a push right now. We're looking to get gradually better.
So the next pick was Edie, which went higher than all the mock drafts that I saw, the Grizzlies do find a big man. Like that's the one weakness of their team that stands out more than anything else is that they needed a big body. Jaren Jackson Jr. You want him to roam a little bit, and then be able to put him at the 5 when those matchups allow themselves. What do you think about Zach Edey? People either hate him, they like him. What's your take on Zach Edey?
I think the Grizzlies want him to be what Rudy Gobert is: pick and roll, defend the rim, alley-oop with Ja Morant. You look at the Grizzlies. I mean, Aldama's 7 foot. Jaren Jackson's 6'10", but he doesn't play like he's 6'10" around the rim. Great shot blocker. But remember, this was a team that was the number 2 seed before last year, obviously killed by injuries. But they got a lot of young talent, and they're poised to make a run. Like, assuming they're healthy, they have Ja Morant and Marcus Smart in their backcourt. Maybe Vince Williams at the 3, Jaren Jackson at the 4. Maybe they play Zach Edey at the 5. I mean, but we talked about Desmond Bane. Like, maybe they
I think Edey starts.
Okay, so who's the 5 that start? Ja Morant, Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson,
Edey.
Zach Edey.
Yeah.
I love that. And then off the bench, you have Gigi Jackson, you have Vince Williams Jr. Remember, this was a number 2 seed before they made that Marcus Smart trade.
They drafted 2 shooters too, and one being 2 guys that shot over 40%, and one is Cam Spencer of UConn, and they needed shooting. You can see Kennard probably leaving out, but yeah, you could add some shooting.
Look, I'm not going to say that they're the Warriors, but you remember when the Warriors won and then they were just decimated by injuries. Like Steph missed most of the season. They had a really bad year. They got the number 2 pick, got Wiseman. Even though they didn't use Wiseman, then they won a ring about a year or 2 later. But they just were so injury plagued and kind of took a reset. That's what this reminds me with the Grizzlies now. Do I think they're going to win it all? No. But I think they're a team now that they're fully healthy going into the year, and they're very young, and we've seen the upside that they play together, and they got better than when they got bounced by the Lakers 2 years ago.
All right, on the Lakers, they made the best draft pick in the whole draft, getting Bronny James at 55.
Yeah, you love that. Did you get the poster up?
I'll get one. But in all seriousness, they might have got the steal of the draft and Dalton Connect. LeBron needs shooting around him, and they got somebody that's ready to shoot right now. Maybe the best movement shooter in the entire draft. You got JJ Redick drawing it up. He falls all the way down to 17. And a lot of people had him in their top 10. What say you about Dalton Connect falling in laps of the LA Lakers, who have been not making the best pickups? And I mean, they missed out on Jaime Jaquez last year, just off the top of my head. But I like Dalton Connect. He can come in there and play right now.
I like where they got him at 17.
First team all rookie. You heard it here first.
I think he's going to fit in well because he's a role player. When the mocks I saw had him going top 10, I was not a fan of that. I mean, he's 6'6", can shoot the ball well. I think also when in LA, you can't take guys that have egos at this point. And to me, Dalton Connect seems like someone that isn't going to demand the ball, will kind of know his role. Being learning from LeBron James. I mean,
he's the kid that fought his whole life, and he's gym rat, and JJ's going to help give him a plan. I like that fit. Other winners of the draft. Anybody stick out to you before I throw another one out there?
I like Nikola Topic going to the OKC.
Okay. Yeah.
I think OKC had a great offseason. That's why I was saying I don't know if the Wizards were the biggest winners, because you got Alex Caruso, who is going to shore up the defensive end. I love him and Lou Dort together because Lou Dort can defend, forwards. He was defending Anthony Edwards in the playoffs for a little bit. I love getting rid of Josh Giddey because they were going to have to pay him $20+ million.
And then Topic, like the perfect replacement plan for a Josh Giddey. Like he's a pick and roll maestro, and I mean he has more of an upside with the shot, but he might be the best pick and roll player in the draft. He's got good size as a point guard. You take a year off. I mean, Oklahoma City's not going nowhere.
I was going to say OKC did this before with Chet Holmgren. They were obviously Chet Holmgren got hurt in the summer league, but they were fine benching him for the year, and that was the number 2 overall pick. So
it could pay off. For sure.
I mean, he would have gone probably top 6, 7 if he didn't tear his ACL. So I mean, let's say worst case scenario, he's never the same player, which I don't see with modern
He's not an
medicine
above the
and
rim
him
player.
doing that.
If anything, I think this might help him develop his shot. I've seen a lot of players tear their ACLs before. I've done it myself, where you're in the lab, you can't do anything but shoot. So it
Mm-hmm.
does. I've seen people help their shot. I've seen Zach LaVine improve his jumper when he tore his ACL. Like, it happens. You have nothing else to do but to shoot. So it might be, Chet bulked up when he got hurt. Like, he came back stronger than ever. And we saw last year as he was runner up for Rookie of the Year. Yeah, so the Giddy thing, I think it was a kind of a win-win on
I do
both
too.
sides. Like, I like Caruso. Like, obviously, Chicago's finally announced that they're gonna be doing a rebuild with this type of move, right?
Nah. You know, Chicago. That makes too much sense for them, man. Come on.
God, they have dropped the ball like crazy on this. Matas Buzelis drops to them at 11. And I
Yeah,
mean, somebody had to drop. So
someone lost money on Buzelis. I heard from a source, aka my brother. Yeah, James feels super confident he'll go
I
number
thought he was gonna
5.
go 5. I
Oh,
mean,
James, I'm now down money because of you. This
it
is what
made
happens when I respect your knowledge too
it
much.
was the second, like, to me, I thought it was like the second most likely thing outside Alex R. But I mean, he fell, and he's a Chicago kid. You saw all the emotion. He's crying. His brother's crying like crazy. Hometown kid there, and I think he'll get an opportunity in Chicago. Ideally, if they start moving some of those other pieces. But you got Kobe White, you got Giddy going forward. We'll see what happens with Levine. It looks like no one wants him, but nonetheless, a team that apparently doesn't want them. That's what I've been reading as far as the reports are concerned. Philly is out on the Zach LaVine thing, but I thought they were winners in this draft. You get Jared McCain, who is a knockdown shooter. To me, the smartest kid in the whole draft, a leader amongst men. He's going to be great for the locker room. He has a very patient game. He can really shoot the ball. Yeah, he's not the biggest of guys, but you have Joel Embiid. He can get his shot a little bit. Then they get Akeem Bona, a hustle player, somebody that's going to just do any and everything when Joel Embiid is not on the basketball court. And then for what it's worth, they signed Justin Edwards, who went undrafted. But this time last year, he was a projected lottery pick before he fell off at Kentucky, and he's a local PA guy. So
I
I
I
like what Philly
wanted
did.
I wanted the Wizards to get McCain at 14. I'm not mad that they got Bub, but I think Jared McCain is a more pro-ready guy right now. At Duke last year,
I agree.
14.3
I
points
wanted
per
him to.
game, 46.2% from the field, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.1 steals. He's a gritty player. And as I mentioned, I think he's pro-ready. I think he's very coachable. I think obviously he was more of a scorer at Duke, but I could see him, taking a step back. Like, I see him and Stephon Castle having similar games. Not saying they're the exact same player, but guys that were coached in good programs, that come pro ready, that can score the ball but are versatile. I think Philly got a good steal with him, and I think that's a great pairing with Maxey.
Yeah, I just like that fit all around. Any other, I guess, since we're on that draft, say any other of your picks that you like? Baylor Shireman is gonna come in and play right away. He's like 24. He's like in his prime right now, and he hasn't even played a game.
James, let me ask you, what did you think about Reed Shepard at 3?
It was the right move to make. I mean, you need shooting, and he's the best shooting prospect probably since Steph Curry. I mean, kids don't shoot over 50% from the 3-point line. His numbers in the paint and all over the place are like in the 99 percentile. And I mean, not like I looked up any of this research, as I'm kind of regurgitating it, but the facts are the facts. He is a very efficient player shooting the ball, and he can really extend it. He can shoot it quick, and I think he's got his passing ability on a fast break with all those runners and athletes that you got in Houston. I like it.
I
I would have got him.
at first I was like, why did they do that? And then you look at the draft and you're like, this draft is so weak. I want to say a loser for this NBA draft is the casual NBA fan. I feel like this is the least amount of prospects that I've known going into an NBA draft probably in my life.
Speaking of, I gotta say it. What's your take on Ricochet? Atlanta. You,
I think they're losers.
I think I'm
I was
indicating how I feel about it. I'm not a big Ricochet guy, especially at one. He's a 3-and-D. He can maybe shoot the ball. It's Atlanta though. Like, wouldn't you want to address your front court in the future and take a
I
swing on an Alex Sarr catching lobs? I don't care if you don't want to be there.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
what that's what I would have done. I mean, look at the 2004 NFL draft when Eli Manning didn't want to play for the Chargers and they traded him, or play for the Chargers and they traded him to the Giants, and then the Chargers got draft picks for him. Like, I think you have the leverage play. Okay, you don't want to play for us. We'll just hold your draft rights. Either you play for us or a team is willing to trade for you.
Yeah,
And
the Spurs love them.
I think this was a bad year to get number one for
Oh, for sure.
Atlanta, obviously
Of
from
course.
the class itself. But I think Atlanta, like, they were kind of in a transition. Like, we talk about the Bulls mismanaging Atlanta. Atlanta, what are you going to do with Young and DeJounte Murray? Clint Capella has been dangled in trade rumors for years. Sadiq Bey is coming off a torn ACL. Who knows what he'll be? But it sounds like Jalen Johnson is their building block. But
I mean, you have Jalen Johnson, you have Bay, you have. I mean, they did trade AJ Griffin to the Mavs,
AJ
but it's
Griffin's
like
like a ninth man for them. Come on.
no. I mean, they traded, but my point was that they have all these wings, and I mean, they did just spend a first round draft pick on him 2 years ago. He's still a young prospect. Like, my thing was like, I think they should have addressed the front court and like you. I mean, ideally, you're trying to keep Trey, right? You're trying to keep one of those stars. It's hard to come by maybe the best franchise player you've ever had, or maybe the second best franchise player you've ever had in Atlanta. Like, but this screams like he'll be asking for a trade in a year or so because I don't think he'll be developed and to the point where it's like all of a sudden Atlanta's contending because they have
Where are
Zachary
they
Ricochet,
where are they playing him at the 4?
uh, or the 4, the 3. I mean, you have
I
Jalen
mean, I mean, what
Johnson. I
I was
mean,
going to say, Jalen Johnson plays
Bay.
the
I mean,
3.
I think you have some versatility there where you're switchable even with the Jonte and you know, Trey's really kind of your only weak link that you do have defensively, but
Still got Bogdanovich.
it just doesn't
Still got
move the needle to me. And
still
this is
got
like why the casual fan was not interested in this
yeah.
year's draft.
Still got DeAndre Hunter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Another first round pick.
it's I mean, I'm looking, still got a Kongwu. Like, they have such a log jam. They have a bunch of good guys. Like Trae Young, obviously great offensive, great score, liability on defense. DeJounte Murray does not complement him at all. You have a bunch of guys that would be sixth, seventh man on the NBA roster, but now you have such a log jam.
So we've spoken on some of the people that got signed long term. We've spoken on some of the draft situations, but we haven't spoke about free agency, which is coming up next. The biggest questions out there, obviously, I think Paul George is the biggest domino. We don't really know what he's going to do. Is he going to come back to the Clippers? Is there someone else that is going to steal him from them? You have Klay Thompson, you got James Harden, other players that still need to make decisions. What do you think the first domino is going to fall, and what's your take on free agency this year? Any teams in particular that you're really looking at to make a splash, or they need to do something?
Golden State. I think Golden State is prepared to lose Klay Thompson. And being realistic, they're not going to be like, they are trying to get one more ring with the roster that they have now, or with Steph on the team. And that's not going to happen with the roster they have now. They're going to try to trade Chris Paul. They're going to try to trade Andrew Wiggins. They're going to try to, find a replacement for Klay Thompson. But they had Klay Thompson coming off the bench. And I think that was the first signal of his tenure here might be done. And that's the balance between the business and then, the loyalty. So I think Golden State is a team to watch because I think they're going to swing for an upside guy. Paul George, maybe they do a sign and trade and try to get someone, but I think the current roster they have now isn't working. It'll be interesting to see where both of those teams go. And, for teams that are tanking, like the Wizards, are they going to do something with Kyle Kuzma? Guys that have good contracts. I think we see a lot of trades happening this offseason. Maybe not a lot of movement on star players, but I think teams are going to be either going all in because outside the Celtics, it's pretty open, or you're going to see a lot of teams starting to tank.
DeMar DeRozan is also an unrestricted free agent.
He
It looks
is.
like he I mean, he wants to win, right? So, do you see a destination that you think would be best fitting for him? I obviously, again, he's gonna try to go to a contender. You'd imagine because he's in that point in his career where he hasn't won, and he would like to be in some of those situations. And he's a clutch player. Uh, he's a California kid. If the Clippers lose out on Paul George, could they be looking at DeMar DeRozan and
That's where I was thinking. He's
James
from
Harden's unrestricted as well? Like, could
he's
you?
from California. But here's the thing about Harden. If the Clippers didn't make a trade for him, was any team going to trade for him? James Harden has worn out his welcome in a lot of areas. I think if James Harden tried to test free agency, he's not going to get the return that he would be looking for. So I think he comes back to the Clippers on a team-friendly deal. It's not like he needs the money. I think they signed DeRozan for maybe like a 3-year, $90 million deal. They keep Kawhi. Maybe they go, and sign Russ and, maybe one or two other pieces. But instead of paying Paul George a premium, I think they try to retool it. And I mean, DeMar DeRozan, I think, is a more reliable scorer than Paul George at this point. I say reliable. We've seen pandemic P, playoff P fade out. DeMar DeRozan is one of the clutch players of the NBA this generation.
Bro, Paul George is a dog. He had a great season last year.
But he come on.
He can score in so many more different ways. Like he's like a 50, 40, 90.
James, name me one person who disappears more in big games than Paul George right now.
James Harden.
Mm-hmm. But okay. Look at what Paul George is going to make in free agency compared to what James Harden would.
I mean, he's clearly not. He's, I guess, the backup plan because they all, it's all on Paul George to make his decision. It is a player option.
I want you to acknowledge that Paul George disappears in big games. Just come on, give me that.
I've seen him be very good in playoff games too.
James. It's almost. I can see the word right here.
I'm not going for that, bro. I've seen him drop 40 on LeBron's head, like for the Pacers. Like he's had moments in the playoffs.
For the Pacers, that's 10 years ago.
Okay, it's the facts are the facts. Like it's a player. Like he didn't have Kawhi to lean on, in this run. He's not made to be the number one guy. Okay, so like ideally he's your third.
Pay him like a number one guy
because he's the tipping point. Like he's that perfect complement player.
He hits the side of the backboard on threes.
Okay, we're not going anywhere with this.
But no. Let me. You say okay. He can't be the number one. He needs Kawhi. Besides this year, Kawhi has missed a lot of time with the Clippers, and Paul George has looked great during the regular season and then faded in the postseason. Will you acknowledge that?
He doesn't have the greatest postseason performances. I'll say that, but
okay,
it doesn't take away his value.
That's the best I'm going to get at this point.
So speaking of players that have stepped up on the playoffs, there's one person that I have my eye on. He's won a championship with the Lakers. He's won one with the Nuggets. He's got a player option that he's declined, and that's KCP. And I don't know if Denver has the money to pay him. They're going to still have to extend Gordon coming soon. I think he may be on the way out. Denver's like slipping a little bit as far as these role players and then going younger and then not playing the young guys. Like, the window is short. And, they let Bruce Brown walk and it cost them in the playoffs. They lose in Game 7 to Minnesota. Like, I'm getting to work. I'd be a little worried as a Nuggets fan going into the season. And you need KCP. He's the perfect glue person. And I don't know if you can really replace that 3-and-D type of a player on, type of contract that he was on. I think it was like 15 mil. So
what I read is he's getting like 2-year $50 million in free agency, which there's no way the Nuggets could keep him.
So what do? You go Clay? Like, I don't know how much Clay is going to make. I don't know.
I think if you're the Nuggets, you're screwed.
I am curious.
You got to get guys at the league minimum, or you got to hope some of your young guys pan out.
Yeah, I'd love to see him come back. You talked about big guy Hardenstein. Jonas Valanciunas is also a free agent center. I mean, it's a weak center draft, but I know I just want to point that out. Like, we'll see where he's going. Looks like his days for the Pelicans probably are numbered. The way that they don't play him down the stretch of games. His value is taking a hit for sure. His better days are behind him. And then you got Tobias Harris. He's the guy that's worse than Paul George when it matters. He had 0 in the closeout game. He's a nothing. He's just out there getting cardio.
Why are you throwing Tobias Harris and Paul George?
Because he's worse.
That's how I know you're reaching. That's how I know
mean,
you're reaching.
hey, there's somebody that signed over $100 million contract. Like, you're supposed to be
but
more than
James,
the Sixers once upon a time chose him over Jimmy Butler.
Okay. You will not find one person in this universe outside Tobias Harris's family that says that contract was worth it. Not one person. Adrian Dantley, friend of the show, trained Tobias Harris when he was in Detroit, and I spoke with him after the contract. You know, I'm working the phones like Woj and Shams, and he said he's not worth that contract. Somebody that worked with him individually. You will not find one person that says Tobias Harris is worth that contract. That's how I know you're reaching to try to find something that's worse than Paul George.
You asked me a question. I just had to come back to it in a second. I gave you Harden, but Tobias screams.
I mean, come on. Yeah. Look, Tobias had 0 in a closeout game. We can't run away from that.
No, he's done it time and time again. I mean, he's still 17, 6 and 3 or something like that. Like, he still does numbers, but it's not what you want. Some other guys got paid. Pascal Siakam for the Indiana Pacers. They're one of the best young teams going forward. I mean, come on. We knew that was going to happen. Like, with the trade happening, it was all indications were like, hey, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You coming back for us, right? We'll give you the max. So I like that going forward for Indiana. I mean, he's a champion, and he fits, you know, the prototypical wing that you want to have for your team. He's a very good player. He's a guy that's worth the money.
I agree.
Malik Monk
I like what Indiana's doing.
Yeah, and they don't need to win it all right now. They're still developing players, but you know, you got Halliburton, and you get some experience. Whether it's the in-season tournament or whether it was in the playoffs, they really are somebody that's going forward. So, any last thoughts before free agency hits, and maybe we can regroup, come back to this?
I want to see chaos. I want to see players getting in their feelings and taking huge deals from another team to spite someone. I want to see some trades. I want to be glued to my phone for 2 days because I can't just stop looking at what Woj and Shams are tweeting.
All right, and you know we'll get that once free agency hits. On another note, I did drop a way too early 2025 mock draft before the ESPN hit their mock 3 hours ago. I dropped it yesterday. It has a lot of the similar players, but if you were trying to look forward to next year's draft, you know, check it out on our Triple Play Fantasy page. I will come up with a top 30 process. It's basically a big board of the top 14 lottery guys. A lot of people that you've probably seen on your Instagram reels, and they're a real short take, but it's worth a watch. So I appreciate it.
It is. James puts in great work. One of the more knowledgeable guys. Just don't follow him for betting with Buzelis. But
thanks, Doc.
But in all honesty, great work that he does. You know, a dad of 2, and you know, finds time to put videos out, and you know, he lives and breathes NBA. So very knowledgeable, and a guy that you know, he definitely deserves your attention for these videos.
Appreciate you, Doc, and everything you do. You're one of the busiest men in this company. Always appreciate you. And then I can't wait to look forward to talk some fantasy basketball yet again. So we will be there every week, every Sunday to get you ready for fantasy basketball once that season hits. For Doc, I'm Coach. Till next time, peace.